Hello, I'm John Richards from Auditing Cloud, and today we're talking about the Center for Internet Security's AWS Foundations benchmark, and we're looking at recommendation 211, ensure all S3 buckets employ encryption at rest. This recommendation covers Amazon's simple storage service, more commonly known as an S3 bucket. CIS describes this recommendation as Amazon's S3s provide a variety of no or low-cost encryption options to protect data at rest. We're going to make use of those encryption methods, but why do we want to do this? The rationale is encrypting data at rest reduces the likelihood that it is unintentionally exposed and can nullify the impact of disclosure if the encryption remains unbroken. No one wants their data breached or leaked, but it can happen. It's essential to secure not only access to data, but also the data itself. Remember, a misconfigured S3 bucket is a tempting target for attackers. Encrypting S3 buckets at rest makes it so that if a bad actor gains access to that data, the data is unreadable due to the encryption. In January, Amazon changed the default setting for all new S3 buckets to default to being encrypted. Now going forward, the likelihood of an S3 bucket being unencrypted is going to be low, but any bucket created before 2023 defaulted to unencrypted, so we want to ensure those have been set to use encryption. We have a policy within Auditing Cloud called Encrypt S3 Buckets at Rest that monitors the configuration settings for this CIS recommendation. Auditing Cloud is an open source, security as code policy engine that monitors your cloud environments for misconfigurations. Encrypt S3 Buckets at Rest is a security policy that checks AWS S3 buckets to verify they are encrypted at rest. Because of the risk that unencrypted data poses in the wrong hands, we classify this as a high severity issue, just one step below critical. Now that we understand the ask, how can we audit this? Well, first, we're going to do it via the AWS console. So we'll go to the console, and there we're going to look for the section on S3. And there we'll find our S3 buckets. We've got one of them, so we're going to go into the properties and look for default encryption. We can check this and see, hey, we do have encryption enabled on our S3 buckets. Let's check the status via the command line now. Amazon offers up Cloud Shell for running CLI commands right in the browser. So we'll run a command to list out all of our S3 buckets. And then we'll run a command to check the encryption status of our service. Now we need to pass in the name of our bucket so we can copy it from up above. The API returns the encryption status for our bucket, and we can see here that we have it set to use AES 256 encryption. That means we are encrypted. Alternatively, something might come back about AWS KMS. That means you're using Amazon's key management system, which is also valid encryption. As long as we're getting one of those values, we know that we're encrypted. But if you don't get one of those results, then that means the S3 bucket needs to be encrypted. So let's look at the steps needed to encrypt it. To do so, we can go back to our buckets. We're going to check the properties again, and in there we can choose one of the encryption types and hit save. Now one key note, changing the encryption type only applies going forward. You'll want to encrypt existing content if you already have sensitive data on that S3 bucket. There are important things to consider when applying encryption to existing assets, so I've included a link with more details in the notes for this video. If you use infrastructure as code, you may have built this S3 bucket using a Terraform or CloudFormation script. In that case, you'll want to modify the script so the problem isn't replicated on future deployments. Now, one way to avoid misconfigurations is to use a platform like Auditing Cloud to monitor your cloud assets. It runs policies across assets, and those assets are easily broken up into custom asset groups based on things like account or a cloud provider. I'll scope our session to just AWS. The Auditing Cloud dashboard shows us metrics on criticality, category, and quantity of policy violations. Earlier we learned that encrypt S3 buckets at rest was a high priority violation, so it would be represented here. Now we're in compliance with this policy, so we won't see the violation in the list, but we can double check by going to the asset type distribution page and looking at one of our S3 buckets. On the asset, we can see all the policies running against it, and we can see that encrypt S3 buckets at rest passes. Let's pull up that policy so we can see the details. Now we've got 190 policies for AWS alone, so let's filter this down to just S3. And here we can see the details for that policy. We can see that we're monitoring every 6 hours to ensure compliance, and we have a link here to Remediate, which will take us to documentation on resolving this issue. Now, if this interests you, please check out our free open source repository for Paladin Cloud on GitHub. Give us a star and let us know if you have any questions or feedback. Thank you so much for watching.